Hello and welcome to Tomcat University, another production by F-14 Calverton, all things Grumman. Tonight's theme for the show is Leadership Knows No Boundaries. The focus is the passing of the torch, training. Example, the Air Boss has what it's called the mini boss. So while the Air Boss has his big eyes looking out aft as a VF-41 Black Aces Tomcat takes a 3-wire, it's the mini boss who's watching up front on the bow. A couple of Jolly Roger plane captains maybe shooting some cold beers out of the huffer across deck to their awaiting sister squadron. So speaking of Jolly Roger plane captains, I want to introduce a fine host. He's the host of tonight's show along with Rob, Todd, and that's based on Virus is out of town. Your F-14 aircrew host, and he's on a mission, some business trip out in Europe. So Rob and Scott are going to take the wheel here, and they're going to make some wake behind the boat tonight. And they brought on two outstanding guests. First guest we're going to introduce here. We'll start with our host, and that's Scott Banasiewicz, VF-84 Jolly Roger plane captain. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Lorenzo.
Also, we turn to a fellow Jolly Roger plane captain who trained alongside Banana in VF-84, back aboard the USS Nimitz CVN-68. And that's Brian. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Lorenzo.
Moving along, merging from the catwalk, getting ready to man Cat 3, and that's USS America, Rob Todd. Good evening, sir.
Lorenzo, great to be here.
We should add Rob's guest tonight. Changes Rob's title tonight, technically, from what we all basically, keep calling him, Cat 3 Rob Todd. And actually, we're going to turn and look at a different part of his career, and that's Instructor Todd. And Instructor Todd works with an incredible program with the United States Navy, and that's the U.S. Naval Sea Cadets Corps. And tonight, his guest is no other than E3 Mitchell, United States Navy surgeon. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. It's good to be here.
Scott, Rob, your show, boys. Take it away.
All right, Rob, you mind if I go first?
Scott, go to kill it.
All righty. First, before I even get started, I just want to give a shout out to Virus. I messaged him right before we started this, and he his family had put down a family pet of over 15 years. And like Lorenzo mentioned earlier, he's not even in the countries, man. So, brother, we feel for you. We love you. We miss you. And, like I said, just hang in there, bro. And that's all. It was Champ and his call sign. Of course, Rio's dog has a call sign, man. His call sign was After Barker. So rest easy, Champ, man. Lorenzo, I got a chance to meet him, and he was just a good dog. So just quick shout outs. So moving on, Brian.
Hey, what's up, Scott?
Hey, I've got some questions here for you. And Brian and I were, like Lorenzo mentioned, we're both plane captains in VF-84 in the mid 80s. I believe Brian got to the squadron a little before me, but we'll get into that as this interview progresses. Brian, you handsome devil, it's so good to see you, my friend. We're going to start right from the beginning. And like I messaged Virus, I said, I'm going to do you proud, because he always starts out, dude, let's be honest, dude's a lawyer. He can talk, you know what I'm saying? But so can I. And, I'm very excited to interview you, brother. It's been so long. Brian came down to Airfest. We hadn't seen each other in over 34 years. He came down to Airfest Labor Day weekend, and it was great. We sat, as soon as he rounded the corner, man, we're in our 50s. Last time we seen each other, we were barely out of teenagers, and I just knew it was him, man. In 9 hours, like we never skipped a beat. And that's what the military does, man. It builds a brotherhood that some of the guys even came up to me after you left, bro, and said it was just a beautiful thing to see, man. So it was great seeing you, and I'm glad that we're back in touch. So the first question, we're going to start right from the beginning, Brian. Where'd you grow up at?
Hey, what's up, Scott? Everything you said, I appreciate, and same to you. It's great seeing you again and getting in touch with you, man. It seems like when you're in the military and you serve with people and the age we were with, you really get to, have these bonds that'll last for a lifetime. I mean, you don't even need to see each other probably for 50 or 60 years, but when you see each other, it's like yesterday. And,
Absolutely.
So it's great. So, yeah, I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. and then from there, I went in the Navy. So, but
Well,
Baltimore's where I originate from.
okay. And that
Go
leads right into
Hoes.
that leads right into
Go
my
Hoes,
next.
yeah, definitely.
There you go. So that leads me right into the next question, bro. I wanted to ask you. So what made you want to join the Navy, and when exactly how did you go about? Did you delayed entry? What made you want to join?
Well, I mean, like me, I mean, when I went in, I think there's a lot of young guys. When you go in the military, there's a lot of guys right out of high school. So, growing up in the city of Baltimore, I come from a family of 13, eight sisters, 4 brothers. And, you grow in an inner city like that, you don't come from a family of wealth or anything like that. So you go to school, if you can go to college, you can, and all that. So, recruiter comes into school and stuff like that. I found it interesting, hey, it'd be cool to work on aircraft and stuff like that. I always found aircraft to be exciting from like World War II and stuff like that. Growing up in the 70s, you watch Baba Black Sheep and all that.
Oh,
And
Yes.
my father, and my
Yes.
father flew aircraft during World War II in the South Pacific. So, there's always kind of an inkling towards aircraft. So Navy came in, recruited, and they said, yeah, we do got aircraft too and all that. And they showed the Tomcat, and I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome and stuff like that. Be nice to be able to work on, fighters like that and stuff like that. So, and short story
What
is,
year was that, Brian?
that was 1985 when I graduated high school. So that would have been probably in the winter time, probably fall winter of 80, to winter of 85. They would have been coming around. And I talked to my parents, they say, hey, if you're not going to school, go in the military, So I signed up and, luckily I went in and got in. And then from there in boot camp, I got lucky to get VF-84 as a squadron. Because when you're in...
Bro, let me pause you for a second, because that's leading right past the question I wanted to ask, because you were a non-rate, correct?
Yeah, just an airman going in.
So you went in as a non-rate, which means you didn't have an A school already,
Yes,
signed up
exactly.
and approved. So right after boot camp, your orders right from Great Lakes was to Oceana?
Yes, right from Oceana was the VF-84. So yeah, from there I went right in, and then you did some training with VF-103, which was the land-based squadron of F-14 squadrons.
101,
101. I'm sorry,
Reapers, right?
Yeah, sorry, it's been like 35.
No problem. I was like, the sluggers, no, because I'm glad you said that though, because I was gonna ask, because I did like 90 days in 101 too. So what did they do? Did they put you in the line shack?
Yeah, well, once you were, because you went to some schooling out in Great Lakes too. Once you got out, you went into school.
Was that your ATD school?
Yeah, and then that's where they actually designated where you were going to go, because you got to pick in the beginning of it. You got to pick like 3 area locations of the country you wanted to go. Me being in young, I was homesick. I wanted to get close to home, so I picked the Norfolk area, the Virginia area, and all that. And then when you got out, they were telling you, okay, when you leave, you're going to go to VF-80. That's where you're headed. Is NAS Oceana, Virginia, and you're going to VF-84 fighter squad.
Bro, do you know how fortunate you are to get selected right to a squadron? Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but more than that, dude's just boatsman's mates, ship's company type stuff. So
you're basically thrown to the wolves. I mean, you're at the mercy of whatever the Navy wants you to do. If that's you sweeping the floor and scrubbing cracks with a toothbrush, so be it.
Yeah, God
blessed
you with that one.
Yeah, I got lucky and fortunate. So, and then when I did my schooling down in Oceana, I went to the squadron, and then from the squadron, I got to spend some time in the aviation structure mechanic, because I wanted to do that. AMH.
Oh,
with
nice.
the AMH AMS, with structures and the hydraulic systems of the bird.
Sure.
And so I got to spend a couple months in that shop and all that. Then they migrated you to the line shack and stuff like that. But I did get to go back and work some more with Chief Miller when he was back in the airframes shop. Whenever we were on land, when I was out at sea, I never went down there. But when on land, I would be able to go over there and do some work and stuff with them and stuff like that.
That's excellent, man. Wow. You just answered like 3 of my next questions in a row. So let me ask you this. So you get to VF-84. Did you immediately deploy? Were you second mechan on the beach? How did you become a plane captain underway like me?
Well, story was a little bit rough because, when I got in, I think we were going right out to workups down in Florida. So we were doing a workup. The Nimitz was just coming out as dry dock, and it had some work. So we were going to do some workups. It was going to be like it's like a 3-week, 4-week workup where they took you down.
Do you remember the time frame? Because I think this is right before I got there.
That would have been right before the North Atlantic cruise. So I would have got to the squadron probably.
We're talking 86, I'm sure.
Yeah, going turning 86. It was probably like in the winter of 86.
Yeah, fall.
Spring break time. You want to know what it was spring break? Because when we were going in Fort Lauderdale, it was like beginning of spring break. I remember that. So that before we went in, it was like kind of like going into spring break.
I hope you behaved. I hope you behaved out in town.
Oh, no. You know how it is. That's what I'm saying. You were with us and all. When you're 18, 19 years old, going to all these ports, you're going to act, a fool.
Hey, don't speak for me. I just went for the sights. You guys were all about the girls. All right, let's stay on track. We got to stay on track here.
Yes.
Okay. So you brought me down to Florida. So when did you become a PC? Tell me what it was like in the board.
Actually on the North Atlantic cruise. But actually, I have a funny story about that, because they're throwing you right. Now, I don't know.
I was there. I got there for that.
People don't understand. It's easier to do it on land. I mean, when you're throwing onto the flight deck and you're saying, okay, go up there. I mean, you got so much things going on in there. It's just massive. You got so many things. You got people screaming at you, hollering at you. You got things you got to watch out for all over
40
the place.
jets running.
You're 18 years old. You really have no freaking clue what you're doing. And if you have a clue, you're like taking it so nonchalantly that you're not really understanding the true dangers you are in
of the situation you are currently involved with. So I feel you, brother.
I was on the North Atlantic cruise, and I had the guy, the lieutenant that was the head of our squadron. I forget his name, was the pilot, and I was going to transfer over from being second mech, and that was going to be my first launch. But when we go up there, there's bad weather. There's wind coming all over the place. I'm like, oh my God.
Your first launch was the skipper?
Well, not the skipper. It was the lieutenant that was in charge of the line shack. I can't remember his name. And
Giles.
No, it wasn't Giles. It was another young guy early on. And
okay.
He kind of laid the gauntlet that, you know what, after this, I better get, you got like a week to become a plane captain. That's it, But he's stressing me out. We're walking around and we're out there, the wind's blowing, and he's not having really any patience. You're going through the science, but those belts they gave you, those tool belts that you had, to do the fasteners and check everything like that. You had to make sure you had them all. But you also had the cards they gave you from the maintenance that was done on the bird. If you had to document any maintenance or anything like that, thing that was on there, fuel and stuff like that. That was in there. So my tool belt's flapping, and like that card looked like it was coming out, and he's screaming, hollering like, hey, pointing to the thing, and I'm going on with the thing. But you got all these jets that are turning and stuff like that. So I understand it's something.
Was it a night or a day launch?
It was a daytime launch. But then so he's like confusing me. So he ended up. I had Marcelletti was my the actual plane captain. I was with him. So Marcelletti had to take over.
He reeled it in.
I was stressing him out with everything.
He said, "I've seen enough of this, Ski. I got it."
Yeah. So then after that, I had to meet with him. He said, "Look, you got to get this down." And boom, boom, boom. And then I was a plane captain by the time we got off the North Atlantic.
Let me test your memory, brother, because correct me if I'm wrong. I was thinking about this when I was writing my notes to interview you, man, and I really put a lot of thought in it. Because you're my boy, man. You're like, you've been my boy the whole way back then, and I remembered, and this might bring back old memories or not, but my best launches, even at night, when I'm just looking at the glow on his face with wands, when you connect, I was joking, thinking about what was that Avatar movie when they get on the things they fly, they bind their tail and they like mentally hook up. Like, that's all good, funny and everything, but I did best in my launches when me and that pilot, like, it's at his pace. Like, he's the one that's looking to gauges and knows he's ready to go ahead and fire up number 2, pull air, and all that. Like, I just locked on him. And when he gave me a simple nod or anything, that was my best launches. He didn't even have to do full movements, and I was on it. And I never thought about that for such a long time. I mean, can you remember any specifics like that?
Oh yeah, I can remember the walk arounds. I can actually remember a lot of the commands used to go through that they would test their systems once they were in. You'd strap them in and stuff like that. And you had a lot of them that were very like keen and stuff like that when you walked around with the pilots. They would be like, because you had that maintenance card on you. Plus, they also got briefed before they got up there, so they knew if there was any maintenance. They find any fasteners that are loose, stuff like that. Hey, has it been topped off, fueled off, stuff like that. And then you'd help them strap in and stuff like that. And they'd walk through your signs to make sure they got to make sure its systems are going to work, so they can be up in their cockpit and press the button that the towers come down. Unless they have somebody visually looking at it, they're not 100% sure whether or not that tower came down.
Exactly.
Even when they're flying in, they got that spotter on the deck that is looking at them coming down to see if their tail hook's down. So and then going through and making sure their refueling bar comes out, their slats, all that stuff is moving side, up and down, side to side in the back and all that. And so it is checks. I think it's an orchestra when you're out on the ship because there's so much moving parts. And I think land, it's a lot different because it seems a lot more slower pace, and you got more open area, less congestion and stuff like that, and less things to look around.
Right. All right, so looky here. Keeping it moving along. The last question about what was the board like? Do you remember standing in front, did you go to the ready room, right?
Yeah, I went in the ready room to talk to him because that's where you had to do your plane captain test too. Remember, when you were a plane captain, you had to take the test in front of him. You had to actually go through all the call signals. You had to go through everything, the alpha, the alpha numerics and stuff like that. You had to do everything with them. So they were kind of testing you there. That's the only time I really was in the ready room, because you just didn't go in there. That was officers' area.
Same here, bro. Rob can tell him, Rob, the one time you went in there, he asked for like a lieutenant and called him a petty officer or something crazy.
Oh no, I'm a retard. When I went up to talk to the pilot, or I went to go get my camera to Leakster, I knocked on the door, and this pilot answers the door, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, can I, Petty Officer Leakster, and he yells through the ready room, yeah, somebody wants to talk to you, Petty Officer Leakster. If I literally could have dug a hole in the passageway and climbed in it and died right there, I would have done it. It was awful.
Yeah, that was the only time. Even on land, I don't think I ever was in there on ready room. The only time I was
it's sacred ground, man. And the XO at the time his name was Pirate. He's like, hey, come in, man. And I'm like, it's like an out of body experience, right?
It's really nice in there.
Stepping over that freaking scupper, it was like my legs weighed 1,000 pounds. And then I get in there, and the Diamondback room is all red tile, and it's got a blue snake that's through it. Well, you can't step on the snake.
Yeah,
it was
Jolly Roger.
You know what? I hate to get all nostalgic and everything. All these other squadrons with their cute little pictures and their little cartoon characters. You walked in our ready room, and there was a dead dude's skull in both his femurs. So come at me, bro.
That's right.
Okay, moving.
Brian, what was it like being able to be part of VF-84 when that was the squadron that you literally grew up wanting to be at? When you first got to the squadron, what was it like seeing those black tails with the Jolly Rogers paint on them?
I loved, when I was in, they always had two birds that was the traditional print paint jobs, which was a more glossy paint, and then they were going into the more of the radio wave absorbent paint, which was the more flat paint and all that great. But we had 200 and 201 where always those with the black tails and the skull and crossbones, and then the yellow trim going across the wings and stuff like that. It was beautiful. I mean, you had the thing. I mean, when you're a kid, again, when you're 18, 19 years old, you go there and you don't realize, you're there, but you're not really understanding where you're at.
When you first walk in the hangar, what was your first impression?
This is massive, this is big, the hangar's big. You got all these aircraft parked in there and stuff like that. And it's just, tall, and it's just massive. Everything is huge, even when you're on the ship, it's just, everything's huge.
Yeah, it's quite an experience. First time I saw one was, well, when I went through rescue swimmer school in Pensacola, and then they would fly in there, but I never got to see one up close. And I never really appreciated the scream of a Tomcat until I saw one on the America. And then, so my first inclination was to go, my first walk around with the Tomcat was with Dale Snodgrass. And that was when he was CO of VF-33. He was leaving. And but that was my first impression of that jet, was in person on the America. And then I begged to go launch that airplane with them at NAS Norfolk at the time.
Yeah, listen, being on the line, being in the line shack that we used to call it when you were a plane captain and all that, it did have some benefits because you did work with a lot of different groups.
Right.
Because you had to tow. When you're on the land base, you were the ones that did all the towing of the aircraft. If it needed to go get refueled, you towed it down to the refueling station. If the ADs were going and going to be firing up a new engine and testing the afterburners and stuff like that, you towed the aircraft down there to the blowout center and stuff like that, where they could blow those engines out. And you got to be there. You got, as the plane captain, you're the one that sat up in the seats. I remember being on that Florida that Florida cruise, my first one. We're down off the coast of Florida, and when they were bringing a plane up from the hangar deck. So they had to have a plane captain or a second mech, line check, somebody with the airplane so they can ride brakes on it. What riding brakes is, you'd sit in the cockpit and be ready to have the hydraulic manual brakes while they told you off.
Could you see the water?
Right?
Yeah, well, it was lowered down, and we were in kind of rough seas. We were off the coast of North Carolina, and so the waves were breaking over the elevator.
The elevators, gotcha.
The elevator, once it went all the way down, you were probably about maybe 15, 20 feet off the water.
That's not very far, though.
Yeah, it's not very far, and then you got that big ship that's cruising through the water, so you had a lot of waves that would break over there. So when we put it on, the canopy was up on the bird. So they get it on the hangar deck, and then all of a sudden these waves start coming over, and they can't bring the elevator up. They're having a problem. The ship's having a problem bringing the elevator up. So they're screaming down to me, hey, get up in the plane, because you weren't supposed to be up in the cockpit when it sat on the elevator, because it was only with 2 or 3 chains. And if the wave came and took it, it was taking it off. But they're screaming, get in the cockpit and close the cockpit, right? So I get up there. Now it's like hot out.
Salt water.
It's summertime. I close the cockpit and I'm inside. So I got to sit in and I'm like, holy shit. Now I got waves that are breaking in, over the little thing, and they're hitting the plane. I'm terrified this thing's going to go in. But now it's getting hot, and the ship's rocking, the plane's rocking. I'm going to throw up. I'm going to throw up in this cockpit. I'm screaming at them like, get this up, right? And so they finally get the elevator to go up. When they get it up, I pop the canopy open, and I jump out, and they're saying, no, you got to get back up there. I said, no, I'm going to the side. I got to throw up. I ran to the side of the ship, and I hurled all my oats because they didn't realize I was getting so seasick in the plane that was rocking. It was hot in the cockpit because I couldn't have no air in there. So
it's not even that violent. It's not that violent up and down motion. It's that slow.
Yeah, the rolling of the plane
and that drop. Oh.
Yeah, and then you're on the elevator, and then it's just the heat. You're in there, you got no fresh air. So
that's crazy.
Like a $40 million airplane.
Yeah, and that was the first time on there. I'm like, it's crazy. I would have thrown up all over their airplane, but I got down those steps real quick and threw up on the side of the ship, then got back over.
Were you a plane captain by then?
No, because that was the workup. So I was only a second mech.
Second mech goes off elevator. That would have been bad for your career, bro.
Yeah, it would have been the end of my career. Yeah, I thought it was the end of my career when I jumped out of the airplane. They're all screaming because they had to pull it off the elevator, and they didn't have nobody up there to get it. So I think Chief Miller or somebody had to climb up in there and ride the brakes for him so they could pull it off the elevator.
Dude, these are the stories that people need to hear, man. I know I'm looking at the time, and I just wanted to ask one more thing, Robin. Then I'll turn it to you if you want to talk to him. I wanted to ask you, you told me a story in Wildwood. I'm hoping this is one you pick, but we were talking about mishaps and stuff. And we talked about the whale that we lost and 7-man crew. I've spoke about that before on here, but Tell me about, because this is after we brought the Nimitz around the horn. We got off in San Diego, and then she steamed up to Bremerton, I think, to get recharged. And then we came back, and I ended up getting out. But you guys picked up the Roosevelt, and you were telling me about, because I told you about the E2 that the prop exploded behind me when I was with my plane going through the launch. And you told me about when Chief came back down to the shot, what was on him because of the mishap with an E2.
Yeah.
You want to tell us about that, bro?
I mean, you hate to talk about that because it deals with, life, because, is it our right to, express that, but, if you want it, the thing of it is you had a young crew and they were doing a hot switch in that, it was called a 6-pack area.
Explain what a hot switch is, because some people might not know, Bry.
Well, they bring they touch the planes down. They put them on. It's in front of cats 1 and 2, which is the front bow of the ship, and they bring them over there. They cut an engine off of a plane, so they'll cut
Leave one running.
The first running and the starboard shut down, right?
Yeah, and then they'll pull the pilot and crew out, put a new pilot and crew on while they're fueling, and then they turn around and go right back and get launched back off the ship. So during that exercise, there was a situation where, young ship crew guy, which they handled like the chalking the aircraft, tying down.
So a blue shirt, came
up underneath one of the engines and walked right into the prop of one of those E2. I think it was either, it was either the mail plane that came on or that the E2, which is had the big dome on it, right?
Yeah.
Hawkeye. And ran right into the prop.
And
they shut down operations. Obviously, that was probably death on impact, and shut down operations, cleaned up, and then they went right back to flying. But that's the military. That's what you got to do. I mean, you're going to have accidents, you're going to have things that happen, and stuff like that. I mean, when that one plane went down that night that they didn't catch in the catapult. I mean, you had 7 or 8 people on that plane. They made the choice to not let divers go in there because you're in the middle of the ocean and you send divers down to try to get them out. They said they were most likely dead on impact. Who knows? But do you risk other lives to go down there and risk other lives at that time? I don't know. I don't know who makes those decisions. But yeah, that happened on that was the Theodore Roosevelt. So,
and with all that being said, correct me if I'm wrong, but in my opinion, I think that like we started this interview with how did you go about getting into the Navy and everything, and you went to recruiter and saw a Tomcat and it looked cool, and that's great, man. And from what I've heard and read, recruitment is down right now, and you see cool stuff that they do in any branch, but when you get to the meat and potatoes of it, especially on the flight deck of a United States Navy aircraft carrier, it is a serious and dangerous job. And when incidents like the prop exploding, the kid walking into the prop, us losing a whale, a teenager tends to grow up quick when they see death. And I didn't personally know any of them guys, but they were our shipmates, man. We're all in this together, and it was horrible to witness all that. But I think just like I talked before, Lorenzo, about training videos, and that's kind of the theme of this episode. They used to show us training. Remember the Man from Locks video? The dude, Locks cart blew up, man. And back in the day, I don't know if they do it in 2022. I hope they do, because that is a definitive training tool to show.
All those lessons are written in blood, Scott.
Exactly. You said that before, Rob. I agree.
The training videos that terrified me was when you were in boot camp and they showed you the ropes that could possibly break on the ship and the recoil, the cables. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be on no.
They show you legs flying
like that with ropes and stuff like that.
Can I, real quick, Rob, before I turn it to you, can I tell a story about that very thing, about the arresting gear? Brian, absolutely. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I was on the backup jet and I was by the junkyard behind the island, and I'm right by the arresting gear. Planes are already in the pattern, circling the boat. It's daytime. And our last plane taxied around and in front. It went to Cat 1 and something shot off Cat 2. So I'm listening for one more. I hear it go in the burner, and I'm looking at all these planes. I turn to the pilot. No one told me nothing. I shut them down, powered everything down. Yellow shirt comes over. It's a go. Your bird went down on Cat 1. And I shut the plane down. She comes over. Who told you to shut this plane down? Rob, I'm sorry. I said a yellow shirt did. He said, which one? And I'm sorry, but I said the black guy, because all the yellow shirts were black in the 80s, man. So I couldn't pin it on nobody. And I kind of told a little white lie because I didn't want to take the heat. I still had to go in the island. Got chewed on for that one. But yeah, I shut down the backup jet because I wanted to get the hell away from the arresting gear.
Oh yeah.
And I was a plane captain.
Yeah. I mean, you had a bunch of situations. I mean, again, you don't hear, they don't, Scott, you were there, you seen the A6 get, shot off the catapult, and the nose wheel went off, and the pilots and crew, ejected right there on the ship, and the A6 didn't go overboard. It shot the nose wheel off, but it didn't, the aircraft like tinkered right off the bow of the ship. Right. I mean, you've seen an A7 going across the skyline, and all of a sudden you hear boom, and you see a guy getting launched in the air, and the A7 gets stitched in the ocean. So there's things that happen out there that people just aren't aware of, that it's going to happen. I mean, you're in a situation. I mean, we had that guy in our squad, an older guy. I think he was an AD, he had glasses, and I think he had been blown all overboard twice on a ship. This is before he was in our squadron, but he had talked like he had been blown overboard twice on the ship. And you know what? To be honest with you, I can really see it happening. I mean, because there are situations in there that you're in, and I was in one, and there's other situations in there where you got a lot of jet blasts, and the wrong move or being in the wrong place, you can get blown overboard. I mean, there was only that like 7-foot net that, you got kicked off hard on that. You were going over
man.
that.
Hey, let me check. Aaron, real quick. Are we stretching for time to turn over to Rob and Mitchell, or do we have like 5?
Yeah, you're
Lorenzo?
good. Yeah, you're good.
We're good? Okay. Brian, give me the story. Let the people share with us your story you told me in Wildwood about your experience with jet blast. And that, was it a yellow shirt, the dude that saved you?
Oh yeah, that was
lay that one on us.
Yeah, that was on one. I think it was when we were coming out of the med. We were heading towards Rio, but we were getting ready. We were near the equator, so it was really hot on the flight deck. And then it was, in the Navy, when they would fly, people don't realize that a lot of times when they would take these launches, they would turn into a storm. And you'd be launching these things, you'd have rain coming across the deck, North Atlantic, they would turn in, you'd be snowing, wind would come kicking across the deck. So the deck was a little bit wet because we were coming out of a rainstorm. And I'm on the back with my aircraft, and he's ready to go. He's sitting on the back. They always used to park the F-14s in the back. And so on the catapult, there was an F-14 that was launching off. And there was an A6 coming around. It was by Catapult 3. And A6 is coming around, and it's getting stuck on the actual resting gear. You know how it popped up, that it held it up, and it popped up.
So he had to give it some gas.
Yeah, so he had to give it some gas. Well, we're already getting the blast of the F-14 and going into afterburner. This guy cranks up this A6 at the same time to get him to spin around.
Yo, people don't know, A6s, man, those babies put out some jet blast with them little motors.
Because their exhausts are pointed down to the deck.
Oh, yeah, and it was brutal because I started sliding down the deck because it was slick. People don't realize, even though you got non-skid surface up there, if that deck gets wet, it gets slippery because you got the painted lines.
Oil, fuel.
It's like an ice skating rink.
Yeah, you got the fuel, the oil that gets on the deck. It can get very slick up there. So I start sliding down the deck. And I'm probably maybe about, because I'm in between my berths. So at least I wasn't going towards the blast, that thing. But I remember like Johansson and all them guys were like hanging on to like the side wheel of the F-14 right by the engine, and they were just cringing down because when that F-14 was going off an afterburner, any little bit of skin that was exposed on your body felt like it was melting if you were in back of it. And then the A6 was kicking too, so you're getting double the blast. And I'm sliding. All of a sudden, I fall down. I'm trying to grab a pad eye on the ground, which they tied the hooks on, and I couldn't grab one.
You were getting air fried before air fryers, bro.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
my
see
bad.
this. I look up, I see this yellow shirt sliding across the ground like he's just on skates, like coming across. He's
Superman.
letting the blast come across, drag him across. He
got
falls
you.
down on top of me, and we're sitting there, and we're just, because he knew I was getting close to the side of the deck that I was getting pushed, and we just sat there and cringed the entire time. Once the F-14 took off, it was like a breath of fresh air came across. You could actually breathe, but the A6 was still blurring. So once he got up, he went over to the yellow shirt that was directing the A6 and grabbed his goggles, slapped him, and said, "What the hell are you?" You know, was cursing him out. See what was going on. So there are situations.
So dude didn't even pay attention when he turned the jet. That's why he was mad at him.
See what he was turning. That he had people all in back of him that were going to fry from engage. You know, speeding up that A6. So there's so many stories.
I never knew that one till you told me, and I wanna share one more, and then I'll give up the thing to Rob. But I don't know if I ever told you this one, or if you were aware of it. When I was a second mech, I forgot who was PCing, but we just broke the chains. They pulled the chocks, taxied it, so the nozzles were over the deck, so I could get under and check the tail hook. Do you know where I'm going with this? Do you remember this?
Man, I might not. Yeah.
Well, PC gives single. He drops the hook. Little baby bananas under there. Cotter pin, good. I'm doing my thing, dude. And I hear, and I look, and the nozzles are closing, bro. Someone took control of the jet and was taxiing it forward, and all I seen was net. I hit the deck on bare skin on the non-skid. I'm sounding like I think I was in a movie, but I'm my mama, bro. I'm like, I don't want to go in the water. I don't want to burn. And all of a sudden, I see the plane and the shocks give. Somebody comes running over with emergency stop, and there was I don't even remember what happened, bro. I thought I was going to die. So yeah, I think we all we almost died.
Well,
stories.
You look at the stories they do have, but then you look at the testament to how well things operate in the military like that, because just think of how many up on that deck at one time. I mean, there had to be, a couple hundred people, that were up there, during launch time when they were loading
three football fields.
Yeah, and there had to be a couple hundred people up there in sync doing this job, and that more people didn't get hurt is an amazing feat. And to do it day in, day out, 12 hours on, 12 hours off.
7 days a week.
Wait a minute. What's this 12 hours on, 12 hours off crap?
Hey, you were we were squadron pukes. The ship's company.
Squadron losers. We did.
Losers.
72 hours on.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's walk over to Cat 3 right now.
Way to take over the show, Rob, you bully.
We're turning over to the guys that work longer hours.
And
PC punks.
We had to play.
Go for it, Rob. What's going on?
I feel like we should work in the let's get ready to rumble guy, right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is exactly how it was, man. We were praying for 12. When we were doing some sort of maintenance, I think we were in the med cruise. They were talking about doing 12 hours on, 12 hours off for the cat cruise. That lasted about 10 minutes.
Why is that? You guys didn't have what were your shifts out there then?
We would work. Okay, say you wake up at 05, post up or pre-op the cat, get everything ready to go. So you have a 9-hour fly day, right? So it is all day long till final recovery 2100. Well, what happens if the freaking catapult breaks during that stroke? That's got to be fixed. That has got to be up before the next launch. And if you have alerts, everything has to be dialed in and nonstop. So you work until that cat is up. If that means you don't sleep, that means you don't sleep. Next fly day, 9 cycles. I mean, there are days I saw the sun come up, sun go down, sun come up, sun go down, sun come up, sun go down. That's just what we did.
That's crazy.
That's crazy because
that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Rob, go for it. So take us through, U.S. Naval Sea Cadets Corps and your service with them and what we're doing here.
Hello, guys. We are here with Mitchell Nault. He is one of my Sea Cadet former students. He has been active duty since he left our program. I first got involved in the Sea Cadets when my SEAL recruiter asked me to become an instructor. And this was a long process. I'd been in the Navy I'd been in my Navy my first tour, and then I got out and I came back in directly to go to SEAL training. And through this whole time, I went to BUDS 3 times, 7 training classes, 2 hell weeks. I never completed training due to injury, as what Mr. Nault will be able to tell you all about. Is extremely demanding program. The fact that you can actually train up to that point and actually see it to the fruition where you go to Coronado and you're actually in a class is something that most people just cannot understand, and they certainly cannot fathom. I had the same problems that Mitchell did. He was a little bit younger, but I went when I was a lot older. But the point of this program is we are basically, what we do with the Tomcat, we are trying to preserve its legacy and pass down what we feel about the jet to the next generation. So in addition to that, any of our services that we can pass down and pass it on to another generation is exactly what we are doing here. So I first met Mitchell Nault in U.S. Naval Sea Cadet Corps training called NSWAC, stands for Naval Special Warfare Orientation Course. And we'll talk to him, get his background, and go through his career and find out just exactly what it was that drove him to join the military, his experiences, his learning experiences, and what he's been doing since. So, Mitchell, great to have you.
It's great to be here. Very excited.
What up, Mitchell?
Mr. Scott.
Lieutenant Pete Mitchell, is that you, bro?
No,
this is Seaman.
he's E3 Mitchell.
E3.
At the bar. Come on.
E-Dog for life.
He's a lot smarter than Maverick anyway.
I don't know about that.
Anyway, he looks like Mayo. He looks like Richard Gere from Officer and a Gentleman. So he was kind of geared for this aviation.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Right? So his call sign in NSWAC was Mayo. I used to tell him, stop smiling, Mayo, because I'd be beating him for 1,000 push-ups, and he'd still be smiling the whole entire time.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
he's
you'd
that
yell
guy.
out. He would, Instructor Todd would yell out. He'd be like, "Hey, you have hip flexors? Yeah, you won't have them after I'm done with you."
Oh, we had a private file.
Right? He's laughing at you now, Rod.
That is exactly right. All right, Mitchell, I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us what you did. Tell us your encouragement for joining the Navy, how you joined Sea Cadets, what you learned in Sea Cadets, and how our instruction and our tutelage helped you into what you were doing then and what you're doing now.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it started off for me when I was really young. I was 10, and I had watched a D-Day documentary, and I thought to myself, seeing them charge off of the landing craft and into death, basically. I just thought to myself, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I would be able to do that with the fear. And yeah, I thought to myself at that young age, I was like, I don't know if I'd be able to do that. And the next day I woke up and I was like, I'd do that for my country. And ever since then, I was just looking here and there for that warrior mindset that the generation of World War II had. And from what I found was the SEAL team still had that warrior mindset. They're out there doing hard shit. And I pursued that. My parents were a huge part in me getting there to SEAL training. I thank them constantly for how they helped me. I was young and my mom was she was big into running. So she had us running, I was 9 and she'd have us running laps around the yard. Kind of, she just wanted us to be doing something that was hard. And she put us into these different running groups, like Granite State Flash. It was this running group for other kids my age. We'd do workouts and races. And then that led for me in middle school to compete in cross country and track, which I honestly think
that literally started instilling that warrior spirit in you at a very young age.
I 100% agree, Instructor Todd. Running is one of the hardest things you could possibly do. That and swimming. Swimming is, man. Swimming was harder for me when I joined the Navy than running was. But running, especially at a young age, you learn how to push past barriers that you never thought were possible. When your lungs are burning, your legs are burning, and you still want to catch the guy in front of you, you learn how to push past that the mental barrier that you have. And I think
Hey,
that
Mitchell, excuse me, I just got to tell you, that is mind blowing to me. And I'm so glad that you're sharing this, because everybody says Navy boot camp's easy and all that. Every time we finish running, I grabbed a 55-gallon drum and threw my guts out. But I was a dummy at 17, smoking cigarettes. We did different paths. So to hear a young man like you sharing all of this, it's like inspiring me, dude. And I commend you for it. I hope I didn't break your flow up, but I just wanted to let you know, man, that's awesome, dude.
hey,
No,
thank you,
this is
Scott. Not at all.
2024 Olympics.
No,
Just to give the audience an idea of just exactly what kind of runner and what kind of mindset Nault had. I asked him, we were getting ready to do the CLPST, and that's a physical screening test. It is the exact same one that you use to go to BUD/S that we use to qualify them for NSWAP. And I was just kidding. I said, Nault, what? I said, Mayo, what's your time going to be on the 1.5 mile run?
I remember this.
And he's like, 9 minutes.
9 minutes.
I was like, 9 minutes. I said, that's slow. And he goes, hoo-yah. He knocked out an 8:20, I believe, 8:20, 8:22 1.5 run. And he gets done and he comes over to me and he's a little bit out of breath. And I said, he's like, what kind of time did I get? I was like, I said, you're pretty close to failing. And he looked at me and his eyes kind of rolled back in his head. And then for him to find out later on that he ran a 6-minute mile for the most part, a sub 6-minute mile for 1.5 miles after maxing out push-ups
tonight.
Maxing out sit-ups, maxing out pull-ups, and a 500-yard swim. He ran a sub 6-minute mile and a half.
Wow. Awesome, man.
Jeez, boy.
Yeah, that was I wish I could explain running more. It like my mom and dad, they really just, I guess I want to explain this a little bit further for, just for, I don't know how to explain that, but my parents, I grew up until I was like 10. I grew up pretty unhealthy, and my parents would say the exact same thing to me, like to everyone, like, hey, we were unhealthy growing up. And then I think seeing, we would go out to eat like 4 times a week, just eating stuff that we shouldn't. And my mom just like one day, we were literally driving to the library and she was like, hey, I just want to let you guys know we're no longer going out to eat anymore. I'm going to be cooking meals from here on out. Me and your father are going to start running. And in a little bit, you guys will be joining us once we get started in our journey of running.
Lord have mercy. We're going to have this kid's parents on next. Keep going, Mitchell.
His parents are awesome.
I think seeing that at a young age was so beneficial for me, because I didn't realize that this lifestyle we were living was bad and that we can actually be better than where we're at now. So seeing that at a young age, it kind of like motivated me to be like, okay, if they're going to do it, I'm going to do it. And it's like, ever since then, I think that led to where I'm at now, is just like my parents. And ever since then, my mom's run 2 ultras, a marathon, 3 half marathons. My dad, he was a big runner in college, and even in the Air Force, my dad's an Air Force vet. He ran for the track and field team for the Air Force and cross country. And he's run multiple marathons. He ran a sub 5-minute mile. But yeah,
so we know where you got that from.
Yeah,
right?
My dad.
Good genes, boy.
Yeah. But I think that for me was beneficial for sure. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you guys, we try and instill in the 2 weeks that we have with these cadets to teach them, and they basically come to this training program because they want their ass kicked. They do. And they're crying out for it. We live in a time now where you pat everybody on the back and say, oh, it's okay. Here's your trophy because you showed up. And NSWAC's not like that. You have to bring your A game every single day. And we require them to do that. But in addition, we can't teach them, how to shoot, how to clear rooms, how to blow demo, how to dive. And Mitchell Nault is definitely not a diver.
Whoa! Hey, I got better.
Hey! Don't. We'll get to your diving experience later. But we can't teach them all this stuff in a 2-week period. It's like a crawl, walk, run, sprint sort of thing. And all we can do is teach them that warrior mindset. And that's basically the time that we have that we can spend with these kids, is to mold them from what they think, going from that point to getting to the point where they might want to make special operations a career, or they might want to do something else. And that is the most important thing in that training curriculum, is to teach them that mindset.
Well, that's exactly why I joined the Sea Cadets, Instructor Todd, was for that training. I remember I was already like pretty successful in my cross country career. I was never the fastest, but I was definitely starting to instill that warrior mindset. And I kept thinking to myself, okay, what next? And I think I was online. I looked up SEAL training for kids is what I looked up for. And Sea Cadets came up and NSWAC popped up. And I said, okay, I'm going to go to NSWAC. And it took me 2 years to get there. I had to do Sea Cadet boot camp, and then I had to do a advanced training, which I did a field operations training, and then I had to take a diving course, and I had to pass the SEAL PST to attend. And yeah, it took me 2 years to get there, and then I ended up getting there.
What was the biggest thing that you got out of, now Banana and Brian and I talked about the different traumatic things that we endured. And I don't care, in any Navy profession, in any Navy rate, there is some sort of element of dangers, or some sort of
100%.
element of, possibility of injury, possibly getting hurt. There's a possibility of getting killed. Scott, Brian, and I all signed on to that, as did you, knowing full well, the chances of you getting hurt are high, and the chances of you getting killed are high.
Yes.
What is it that possesses somebody to move forward past that fear?
Hold on. Can I say something? I didn't sign on to get killed. That was leaving my mind.
But you did know you were doing.
I wanted to do everything possible not to get killed.
Yeah.
You didn't want to be the guy in the locker room, you're saying?
Yeah, I didn't want to be the guy getting sucked in the engine.
Yeah, that's a.
Nah. But when you're young, you sign up. You know what you're doing. You're representing your country.
That's
you
right.
Really, that's what it's all about.
I signed up to see the world and chicks, man. Let's keep it 100, bro.
I signed up to meet a guy named Scott Banasiewicz.
And you won, baby.
So
Well,
Mitchell, back. What makes you push past those barriers and
like that fear.
Those things?
Well, for me, it was, I guess, seeing myself. I'm a very deep thinker as a person. And for me, it was looking into the future, 20, 30 years, and seeing myself work a 9-to-5 job, depressed, thinking that I should have done this thing, and I was too scared to do it. So I figured that if I was going to die, I was going to die trying and die doing what I thought was the right thing and what I loved. And I figured that that was the best way to go for me. So I figured, send it. Let's do it.
Jesus, we're going to make our first movie, and it's going to be called Mitchell.
No.
This kid's going to be our star.
The life.
But guys, I will tell you that there are some cadets there that come and they look like scared little kids. They have no idea what they're getting into.
Mitchell shows up with a smile, like, let's
Mitchell
rock and
shows
roll.
up. Well,
Because his mom made him run as soon as he got out of diapers. I love this. I'd love to meet this woman.
I got a serious question for you, Mitchell.
Yes,
What
sir.
did you do in the weeks or say months before the Sea Cadet training class of 2 weeks, that time frame? What did you do to prepare yourself physically and mentally?
What do you think he did? He ran on broken glass, man, on fire. Mitchell's a savage.
How did you rate the 2 week clock versus how you prepared yourself for it? Did you do enough? Were you ready enough? Do you think you could have did more? Is there always that, what do you talk to me about that?
Yes, sir. Well, for me, it was more, I like to think I was pretty prepared. I should have prepared more in diving, but it was, okay. Well, to answer your real question, for me, I was already prepared. I was fit. I knew I could swim. I knew I could run, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups. I was all set on that. I knew I had the physical endurance. For me, it was to see where I was at mentally. I couldn't find anything more besides, running or swimming that could push me past a mental barrier. So I figured I have to go through this training to see where I'm at mentally, because in 2 years I'm going to Buds, the real deal. So for me, that
Yeah.
training was essential for me to see where I was at mentally
Yeah,
and
the-
to see if this program was right for me.
Yeah,
Lorenzo, to give you an idea on this, that we put these kids through what's called, it's a Minister Hell Week. It's Hell Night. And we keep them awake for, well, it's typically 32 hours, but you're up a full day before that. So it's around a 60-hour time that they're awake. These cadets are pushed to a level that I know they've never been to that level before. They've never been pushed to stay awake like that. They've never been physically exhausted in that manner. What did you learn from that training? And what was the scariest time in that training for you? You and I have talked about this.
The scariest time for me was honestly when, after breakout, they're shooting blanks, they're throwing these dummy grenades or the loud explosions, the flashbangs, and they're spraying us down with water, like push-ups, sit-ups, run with the boats. And I was like, that was pure adrenaline. And the thing that was the scariest for me was when Instructor Todd called out the time. Hey, it's only 10 o'clock, guys. It's only 10 o'clock and you're going all night. And, we're sitting in this volleyball pit. It's just like sand and sit-ups, push-ups, belly, backs, feet, and, they're just spraying us down with water. And I'm like, holy shit, like this is just a start. Like, it's not even midnight yet. And I think for me, like, the realization was like real. I was like, man, like, how do I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this. And I just one foot after another, I realized like, hey, it's not that bad. Just focus on your team, focus on, the commands that the instructors call out, and the time's going to go by. So for me, it was realizing the time frame and never doing that before.
Well, I'll tell you guys in the audience that doesn't quite understand this. Go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to say, what's that saying? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
That's right.
Yeah, seriously, that's so true.
So we have to go into the tent, wake up these kids. We set out 2 smoke grenades on the outside, and we literally have 2 or 3 flashbangs depending on what's available. And we go in and we start firing off blanks. We start firing off rifles, and let those flashbangs go. And these kids think the world has ended. I mean, they literally have no idea what's going on. And I storm into the tent. Now we kind of get into this. I get in some of my tactical gear. I paint my face. I've got a boonie hat on. For some reason, Nault has not gotten out of his rack yet.
I'm a deep sleeper. Come on.
So I rush over to him and I lean over him in the dark and I said, "Wake the hell up, Nault." And he like opens his eyes and then he shuts them like I'm not there. And then he like opens one eye up and he looks at me again, and I pick up his rack and I literally throw him up and out of his rack onto the floor.
Yeah, that was the scariest thing.
Got Raining Blood by Slayer playing at full volume in the background.
Oh, we had
this is going on.
Yeah, it was Guns N' Roses.
Welcome to the Jungle playing.
But I forgot about that. That is actually hilarious. Are we allowed to swear on this? Like,
just keep it, just not blatantly.
You didn't say "wake the hell up." You said "wake the F up."
That's right. It's a lot more effective.
And you screamed that.
Yep.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it's a learning process. These kids go through. I look back at it how the things that I went through, and definitely on the flight deck, I learned. And Scott will tell you this. Brian will tell you this. It is baptism in fire, literally.
Yeah,
working on the flight deck. And when you do something like that, and you do the experience that we had, and hell, I'll even tell you, some of us kind of took it for granted. I mean, we never knew that those days we would look back, especially Scott and Brian having 8 chains that weigh 10. What is that? That's 100 pounds of chains, isn't it? Scott? Brian?
You guys are both muted.
Oh, they are.
Yeah. No, I think it's like 10 pounds of chain. I think
it's 10 pounds of chain. So you have like 80 pounds of chain on, right?
Yeah, it would be normally 90, 3 chains per each wheel mount, unless it was rougher seas, then you go up to 4 chains. So you might have 12 chains altogether.
Well, think about all that weight, and you're sitting there just waiting for your jet to launch or for the jet to recover.
Yeah.
Being in that environment and then being introduced into, you sometimes took it for granted. You never thought that would leave, and you definitely never thought you'd look back at that with any kind of fondness, right?
Nah, I took my whole Navy career for granted, to be honest with you. I wish you don't realize when you're in and you go in at a young age without any direction, you do realize that, you have so much there at your footsteps. And, a lot of times when you're young, you're foolish.
Right.
100%.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you, man.
Like I was telling these guys at Wildwood, Brian, I don't know if you had the same experience, but talking about air shows at Oceana, yo, we got off work on Friday. I wasn't sticking around to see no air show, man. I see an air show every day. So I never went and bought no t-shirts or seen a Tomcat rip around. I was out in town. What about you? Did you go?
I never, because like you said, you had the air show every day. So
Yeah. Okay.
it wasn't that. And it's like,
So again, just like you said, young, we weren't fully, we should have been there, man. We should have been getting shirts, but you know where we.
I got one for you with on the air show stuff. So both my parents were controllers. So air shows, I got to go up in the tower. So for years, man, I was so salty. I was like, I'm trying to be down on the flight line and go look around at all the static displays. The first year I had to do that, where like I couldn't get up in the tower, I was like, this sucks, dude. Like, I'm just sitting there going, I spent years begging to be down here. And like, here I am going, getting heat stroke. It's 105 degrees outside, man. Tarmac, it's like 120. And you're just like, why did I want to do this? I like air conditioned tower where like, you don't need air pro, like none of that shit, man. And like, here I am dying.
Young and dumb.
And I paid for it. I paid to do that too. That was the crazy thing, man. So
can I ask a question to Mitchell? I mean, I might have missed this or not. This Sea Cadet thing, you did that. Now, did you ended up going in the military, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what did you do there?
I joined with a SEAL contract. It's like an SO contract. So it's
did you have to take like you went to the cadet school to pass their, because you got to take a fitness test to get accepted to SEALs before even going.
You have to take the exact same test, Brian, just to get to, we have hundreds and hundreds of kids apply for that program. We only accept 40.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. Like, if you sign up for the military, like, and say your direction is SEALs, and they say, okay, you can do SEALs, do they make you take a test before they
absolutely.
Yes.
talk
Absolutely.
to? I know
I took,
because the only SEAL interaction I ever had was in boot camp. I had this guy who was coming from he was an Army Ranger, and he switched over
branches
to the Navy because he wanted to be a SEAL. His name was Obermeyer. I mean, the guy was a beast, but he had it in boot camp. He had to go take the physical fitness test. It was SEALs, and he failed the first 2. He got down to the third one right before getting out of boot camp. He finally passed it. But I mean, he was a beast, and he had to do so many push-ups. He said so many pull-ups, so many sit-ups, swim, run, in all certain amount of time. So that Sea Cadet school was basically preparing Mitchell then for that test before he went and signed up for the military.
You know how many times I took my SEAL screening test 17 times before I went to BUD/S.
Yeah,
because my commander wanted me. I went when I was 29, and my commander, our commander, Commander Allman, wanted me to be better than the rest because he knew I was going to have a hard time. I was having to compete with active duty and officers and everything. Mitchell went in when he was very young, but he was also extremely physically capable. Most importantly, and Mitchell will tell you this, the mental part of it is the most important thing.
Yeah, it is.
So what happened? So what happened, Mitchell?
Well, I I took the screening test 10 times. I passed all 10. My chief, you have like a mentor before you join the Navy, and my chief just wanted to make sure we got the best numbers possible so he could submit my package to get that SO contract. I got my SO contract, my first PST, and I shipped out, I think, six months later, went to boot camp. In boot camp, you do take the PST, the physical screening test 3 times. And all of us failed the first one. Everyone in my boot camp division, we were all super sick. I don't know if you guys have had that experience in boot camp where you just like,
Oh yeah.
everyone gets sick. So they cut us slack on that first one. But we passed.
They probably did. They probably failed you on purpose to test your mental strength too.
Yeah, they do that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they did that or not. But yeah, I ended up after I graduated boot camp, I went to.
Was this at
Buds
Great
Prep.
Lakes?
Yes, it was. And then we stayed in Great Lakes for 2 more months for Buds Prep. It's the Buds Preparatory School. It's they changed the name. It's Naval Special Warfare Preparatory School because now, or the SWIC candidates went through it as well.
Now it's gone.
It's gone. Yeah, I was a part of that transition. So after Buds Prep, I graduated Buds Prep, and I went on to go to Coronado, California, and attend basic underwater demolition SEAL training. And so, yeah, you go through basic orientation for Buds, and which is just kind of getting you oriented.
Did you do 3 weeks, 5 weeks? Because my inductories were 5 weeks.
Mine was 4 weeks because of Christmas break.
Mm-hmm.
So I made it through basic orientation, and then first phase started, which is the selection. It's always a selection process throughout Buds, SQT, but like first phase is like the hammer, and they're just beating you all day. I mean, you're miserable. They make you as miserable as possible. And
were you in a winter class or were you in a summer class?
I was a winter class, so it was cold,
all you got to do is get wet.
Yeah, that's literally all they do is just like they beat you, and then they're like, well, they don't like hit us or whatever, but like, they push-ups, sit-ups, like all that kind of crazy stuff. Buddy carries, running boat. You have run with boats on your head. So then you do log PT, swims, runs, grinder PT all day long. Like not all of these evolutions are done on these days. You do like pool evolutions, like underwater knot tying, 50-meter underwater, and you're expected to pass these evolutions. If you don't pass, you get a second chance, and then you get dropped from the program. I passed all the evolutions up until the accident, which was, a couple weeks into first phase. We were doing log PT, and we were holding the logs up. We were laying on our backs, and they had us hold the log fully extended up and do leg levers. So you have to take your legs and touch the log that's fully extended, and your whole boat crew's there, and you have 7 guys. And when you're doing that, the log kind of gets unstable, and the log ended up falling, and I was on the end, and it crushed my hips, and I fractured the femoral neck, both hips. I didn't know what to do because I didn't think I was going to get hurt. I don't know. That thought never came into my mind. The only thought was, hey, I just have to get through this evolution. I just have to make it. Like, just keep going.
It's not, anybody here that's listening got to understand, it's not if you get hurt in Buds, it's how bad you get hurt in Buds.
Exactly. Yeah, that's actually true. So I didn't know how bad I was hurt. I was just like, I'm hurting pretty bad. I can't run. Well, I was trying to run.
This is pre-Hell Week, correct?
Yes, pre-Hell Week. I did not make it to Hell Week. So during this day after log PT, I got beat pretty bad because I couldn't keep up with the log. I was, my hips were destroyed. I mean, I could barely run. I was just like limping, running. I'm like, what is going on? I've never experienced this kind of pain before. I'm like, I don't know what's going to go on with this. I was just like, all right, I'm not going to quit. So they're going to have to pull me. And I kept going. I showed up to the O course, and they were like, no, like, we have land portage after this. You better pass this obstacle course. Like, they're just like throwing stuff at me to like get me to quit because they thought like I was just like, faking my injuries. A lot of people do that. So I was just like, screw it. I'm doing the obstacle course. I don't care. I ended up, so I made it past the first 2 obstacles, and they're like pretty basic obstacles. And then we got to the high wall, which is like a rope that comes down from one end of the wall, and then you have to
extend your legs out for that.
Yes, exactly. And that was the problem that I had was my hips were destroyed. So I was trying to get up this wall. I ended up getting to the top, just purely my shoulders pulling me up this wall. And I tried to get over the wall. And when I did that, I couldn't swing my hips over the top. And I ended up falling and I fell on my left shoulder and I dislocated it. And the corpsman popped it back
Jeez.
in. And I was like, I'm good to go, man. And he was like, okay. So then I went under the barbed wire, which is the next obstacle. And then I went to the cargo net and I made it up about halfway up the cargo net. And
Guys, this cargo net is 50 feet tall.
yeah, it's pretty tall. I made it up about halfway up, and then my left shoulder just gave out. I mean, my hips were done, and my left shoulder gave out. I fell, and when I fell, I got lucky technically because I didn't fall on my head, but my whole body got entangled in the net, and I started tumbling down, and I smashed my my right shoulder into the ground, which dislocated that shoulder. And they popped that one in. I basically popped that one in. They just ran over to make sure that it was like good, and I was like, I'm good. I failed the obstacle course. They failed me. And then we did a transit to lunch, and then after lunch was rock portage. And rock portage is when you row, like your whole boat crew row these boats out past the surf, and then you row them down to Hotel del Coronado, where you have to traverse these boats across a rock jetty. You have to row the boat up onto the rock jetty, get out, and heave the boat up and over the rock jetty, and report to the instructor. And if they pass or fail you, depending on how well you worked as a team. I didn't even get that far. Like, we rowed the boat out past the surf. We rowed it down to Hotel Del, and the waves are massive during the winter. I mean, like 10-foot, 12-foot waves.
Winter class is famous for tall waves.
Yeah, it was scary. And so we rowed this boat out, and we're coming up on the rock jetty, and I was in the 3, which is the back of the boat. And this wave just completely took us out, and it picked the boat up and it flipped us forward, and I flew right into the rocks, and I smashed my face and head pretty badly. And
this is already the injuries you had.
Yep. And that's when they sent me to Bud's Medical, and they made me sick in quarters, SIQ. And then went to the hospital, and found out all my injuries. They put me in PTRR, which is a division for people who get hurt in Buds.
I know all about it.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time there. So did I. I mean, not as much as you, but I was there for a solid 6 months. They liked me a lot, so they kept me around, even though they knew I probably wasn't going to be return back to training.
Well, I will tell you this, guys, the NSW community does not, you have to earn your keep every day. You have to bring your A game every day. Yep. And after all the difficulties that he endured in training, the special warfare community, especially the Naval Special Warfare Center, decided to keep Mitch around and basically help out the command this whole time while he was awaiting surgeries. He was awaiting processing out of the Navy, basically. If you want to go ahead and wrap it up with that, Mitch, tell us what happened
yeah,
there.
definitely. So Naval Special Warfare, I can't thank them enough for how they treated me. They don't have to treat me that well. They didn't have to. They could have just sent me out undesignated, processed out of the Navy, which was my path from what my surgeons told me. They're like, there's no way you're staying in the Navy. I told them to piss off. I'm like, I'm staying in. I'm going back to Buds. Like I gave them the speech. I'm like, I'm staying in. And they were like, no, you're not. And then I'm like, okay. But okay, so to start off, I got medically dropped from the program. They boarded me, which is they have Buds instructors. They do a board, and they told me, hey man, like, we're sorry to do this, but there's no way you're continuing training, and you're just taking up a bed at this point, which is completely true. I knew I've had 4 surgeries in the Navy. I was 2 deep at that point, and I was like, I got 2 more, and I still have like a 2-year recovery from these surgeries combined. So, I accepted it, and I was put into SAT, which is student awaiting transfer. While I was sitting around, I mean, I was pretty depressed throughout this process after I had gotten hurt. I gained 30 pounds. I was almost 200 pounds, and I'm 5'6", so if that's a good scale to look at. And yeah, I was just sitting around. I was severely depressed. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life. Like, this is the only thing I ever wanted. Like, they're talking about getting me out of the Navy. Like, I love the military. I don't know what I'm gonna do. And
How many times did I call you during this?
a lot. Yeah, Instructor Todd was always there for me. And I was just about to say one of the things that he said to me. He said, "Hey, man, I know what you're feeling, but you need to get your shit together. This is you're still alive. This is your life. And what do you want it to read when you're 40 or 50? Like, what do you want to read back?" And I'm like, okay, all right. And one piece of a piece of advice my mom gave me was like, you need a job. You need to go find a job and you need to go do it. Like, even if you're on crutches or in a
Oh my
sling.
God, dude, I thought you said my mom said you need to jog. I was like, this girl and her running, man.
I wasn't running, trust me.
Dude, that's what I heard too. That's what I heard too. I
Oh, okay, all
was
right.
like, whoa.
shit.
No, she
Go
said
my Dukes. Get your ass running, boy.
Yeah, she's like, shut up.
And his mom is like that too.
Got him
Yeah.
a triple for Christmas.
Oh,
She told me to get a job, so I went to my chief, who is in charge of cats, and I'm like, Chief, I need a job. And he was like, okay, you're gonna shred papers for me. I'm like, okay, roger that. I was there all day shredding papers, and
Yeah.
the next day I came in, he was like, you're really back to shred more papers? And I'm like, yeah, I need something to do. I'm not gonna sit on my phone all day. And he's like, okay. So I shredded papers for a week, and then he put me as a duty driver. So I was driving a van around. And one
Yeah,
of the
man.
things that I found out during this process for me was, I would sit in bed and I just like think about my life, and I'd be like, man, I was just like thinking like I'm not worth anything. And then, I watched this video, and it's this guy, Andy Frisella. Um, he said in this video, he said, you might not think you're the shit, but there are people in your life that think that. Are you going to let those people down? Are you going to believe the narrative that you can't? And I know that just kind of like settled into my mind, where I was like, okay, I need to lose weight. I need to, um, accept my surroundings and be happy that I'm even here shredding papers and duty driving. And in doing that, I made it my goal. I lost 30 pounds in 2 months. I every day I made it like a goal to smile and say hi to every single person that I saw.
Jesus,
If
Rob.
that's all I could do, then that's what I was going to do.
Rob, let me have this kid for 60 seconds. Mitchell, how old are you?
I'm 21 now.
21, dude. Let me tell you a 60-second story, man. And I respect your honesty and everything you've said to us tonight, man. And how I can relate at 54, bro, is we were two different paths. You had your parents, your mom instilled, your dad instilled like physical fitness and all, and you're studious and this and that. Mine was the opposite. My mom died when I was 10. I started doing drugs at 12, and I went in the Navy. And then you did so we had different paths. But to sit here and listen to you, what you went through, you knew what your dream was, what your goal was, and you got hurt multiple times, and you still had it in it. And I get depression and feeling bummed out and bad, but that's why I love my co-host too. To hear you say, I was hoping you were going to say he called you all the time, because he did. Because I know Rob's a solid dude, and we've known each other a bit, but we're in different states. But that's besides the point. So I just want to say thank you, man. Your story inspired me, young man, and I'm so glad that Rob's in your life. And listen, don't you ever think for 1 second, dude, you had your dream, you went and you gave it your best shot. Like you said, you didn't want to wake up at 40 or 50 and say, man, no, you did try, and your body failed because of accidents. And so peace of mind, please. I respect you, young man, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that.
I want to add in also, I mean, when I listen to this whole story and I understand everything you went through and the challenges you faced and everything, I want to say on a serious note, if it was a Saturday night in Las Vegas and I had to put my money on Mike Tyson or you in the ring on a Saturday night, believe it or not, man, I put money on you. I absolutely would. You could take that beating and keep on ticking, because you got that mental desire, man, to win. And that's what, like Rob talked about, that's what's most important. It's knowing that, that's what's the instilling part is. It goes beyond the military. It follows you through that leadership, that desire to win at everything you task yourself with. It's instilled in you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Don't let life beat you down, man. Keep that good, positive attitude. And like you've learned already with Rob and your parent, keep your circle tight and filled with good people. It doesn't even have to be many, man. So you'll do great things, bro. I know it.
Yeah, man.
Well, thank you very much for that. And Instructor Todd, he would always say, to us, like, the only thing you can control is your attitude. So do a damn good job of controlling your attitude.
Right on.
And we would control. And I also want to thank, since I'm here, I had the greatest friend circle in the Navy, Jack Seda and Shane Moore, two best friends. My friend Jack Seda was the officiant at my wedding, and Shane Moore is my best man. These guys, they helped me through a lot of these hard times, and they went through similar times, and they understood, and they were always there in my room every day, hyping me up or making me feel better. And they were just
shout
good
out
dudes.
to them.
Yeah, shout out to those guys. They're just amazing guys. And I want to finish the point that I had before with greeting everyone and smiling and waving, because that actually led to my career with Naval Special Warfare and helped me getting out. Like, every day that I would smile and wave, it was the CMC. He would, he'd always be walking across the grinder. I'd go, "Good morning, Master Chief. Good morning, Master Chief." And I would say that. I said that for like a month straight. And one day he walked into the office and he said, "No, why are you always so damn happy, man?" He said, "You're always in a sling. You're always limping." He's like, "Why are you so happy?" I'm like, "'Cause there's no other place to be, Master Chief. There's no other place to be." Next day he came in. He said, "Do you want to work for me?" I said, "Well, yes, sir." And he took me on as like an administrative assistant. And then I ended up moving to work for operations of Naval Special Warfare Basic Training Command, which is, I have a lot of pride in that, because I built a career from something that I thought would not even be possible. But, my attitude, like having a good attitude, you can get literally anywhere in life.
Banana and Brian, just to wrap this up, Nault left the Navy with a NAM from Naval Special Warfare Center as an E3.
Wow.
That does not happen.
It's badass.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I got to say tonight, the show motto was "Leadership knows no boundaries." And I think that you've seen that tonight. You've seen that at every level, from Brian and Scott training together and hearing Brian's career and going out with the Bones and on the Roosevelt and Teddy. I mean, it's amazing. And then to listen to Mitchell Nault and hear his challenges and how no matter what, he carried himself through mentally, and no matter how bad he hurt physically, he knew in his mind every time he'd win in the end. And that's that motto of training, of the torch passed on, and leadership knows no boundaries. It continues in life at every level. I got to thank all you guys for joining us tonight. Absolutely amazing. And I just want to give everyone out there a shout and just let you know, you can also catch our other fleet show, which is the official F-14 Tomcat radio show with Leakster and Siphon. Also listen to our community show, which is the Producer's Cut by F-14 Calverton, all things Grumman. And again, can't thank these guests enough tonight. Absolutely amazing show. Our hosts, Scott, Rob, thank you. And again, our guest, Brian and Mitch, incredible. Give a shout out to our producer, Aaron, over there. Check out his merch over at goldleaderatx.com.
Good merch, man. Good merch. Buy it up.
Amazing job. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Great show.
Thanks for having me.